All right, we are back. Titans win 27-14 Saturday night in Oakland. The offense looked good. Defense maybe gives you a couple reasons to be concerned moving forward. College football kicks off this weekend. What games are you most looking forward to? You going local? Tennessee, Appalachian State. First chance to see this Vols team that is so highly thought of. Vanderbilt taking on South Carolina. Opportunity to go 1-0 in the SEC. Or one of the marquee games on the national schedule this weekend. So many good ones out there. I think the game that I might be looking forward to the most, not necessarily because of its national title implications or how good the teams in it are, but I think LSU against Wisconsin in Lambeau Field, to me, is a must-watch game. You talk about an LSU team that is a national championship contender. They're going to be right in the thick of things in the West and have a chance to win that division, go to Atlanta probably as the favorite. You have them going up against a Wisconsin team that is going to be physical and go right against LSU. Played them pretty tough a couple years ago. I think that's an interesting matchup. I think LSU's the better team. But here's the other thing. It's in Lambeau Field. College football in Lambeau Field. And oh, by the way, these two schools are some of the best partiers around. Some of the best tailgates you can ever imagine will be found outside Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge, Death Valley, and outside Camp Randall in Madison. This is Bourbon Street meets State Street brats, essentially, outside of Lambeau. So it is going to be a heck of a party there. And I think the football game will be fairly decent as well, although I do think LSU will win that game. 737-7767 is the number. Your thoughts on the Titans and the game you're looking forward to the most this weekend. Let's begin tonight with Jay. Jay, good evening. You're first up.
Hey, Steve. Good topic tonight. Hey, I'm a Vandy fan. Of course, I'm picking the South Carolina game, but you stole my thunder on that one. That's the other one I was really looking forward to watching. And I think something else interesting. I think Southern Miss has a good shot of beating Kentucky. And also, Ole Miss plays Florida State. That might be a good one.
Yep.
But how important is this win for Derek Mason and his career for next year? And I'll hang on and listen. Thanks.
Yeah, I love your pick on the other games, by the way. Interesting contest for Ole Miss and Florida State because both have big-time implications, but somebody's going to walk out of there 0-1. I think it'll be more difficult for Florida State to bounce back from a loss than Ole Miss because Ole Miss has that SEC schedule, and if they can somehow win the West Division, you're going to forget about that first game. I'm not sure Florida State can make you forget about an early loss quite in the same way. For Derek Mason, I think this is a big game, not necessarily for his job security, but for this team in this season. And here's why. When it comes to the hierarchy of the SEC East, I still think you're looking at Tennessee and Georgia and Florida in some order in the top three. And so after that, everybody else is fighting to essentially get in the upper division and be that fourth team and get to a bowl game. That group includes Vanderbilt and South Carolina, now under Will Muschamp. The winner of this game automatically takes a huge step towards that goal. You start 1-0 in the SEC with a win over one of those teams you're competing for that spot against. That's massive. Either way you cut it. Whoever wins walks out of Thursday night one step closer to that goal of 6 wins or 7 wins and getting to a bowl game. Whoever loses, all of a sudden, that becomes a real uphill climb. And so I think Derek Mason is on more solid footing than a lot of people believe at Vanderbilt because I think he's made smart decisions since year one in changing his coaching staff. He's recruited better. His team showed improvement last year, and I believe they'll be better again this year. But just in terms of the goal that they have, and that is to get to a bowl game this year, and I think the goal that a lot of Vanderbilt fans have is to get back to that bowl game. This is a huge game. This is a huge, huge start to the season if you can go 1-0. And 1-0 in conference play as opposed to losing that opener. So a big game over there on West End on Thursday night. LD, good evening. What's going on?
Good afternoon. How you doing, Steve?
Doing well.
All right, it's wonderful that real true sportscasters like me and yourself get to talk today. Well, I'm going to start off with the Titans.
Okay.
32 NFL teams playing this year. I decided to go ahead and say that the Titans, with Dick LeBeau's stand-up defense, they're going to really be stifling all year long. And I'm going to stop at Dick LeBeau and his defense. As long as they can see the field, they're going to win. I'm not going to give a count on the win. And also, I want to see how do you feel about those two legislate colleges in the SEC? Which colleges are you pulling in, and which colleges are you pulling out of the SEC? Whether it be East, West, the two legislate colleges. I would love to hear your intel on those colleges pulling in and pulling out of the SEC.
So do you think? Are you doing a hypothetical here? If you could get rid of two and bring in two to make the league better, or how exactly are you setting up this question for me?
Yeah, if you could bring, let's say if you could bring in two.
Okay.
And you would take out the less legislated college in the SEC, which probably will be LSU, but you've already considered them to go against Wisconsin and be pretty good. I think if I heard that earlier. But which ones would you take out? And which ones would you leave in?
Yeah. I can't even really contemplate taking anybody out because I think the league is so dominant and powerful right now as it is. And just from a monetary aspect of having the SEC network and some of those things, I don't see them ever getting rid of teams that are in the conference right now. But in terms of expansion, if the SEC was going to expand, I see it going in one of two directions. They either go east and jump to the contiguous states, because some people have said, oh, do you go to like a Georgia Tech or to a Florida State or something like that? I don't think those schools that are currently in the SEC in those states will allow that to happen, because they want the SEC recruiting base to themselves within the state. So I don't think Florida lets you take Florida State at any point. I don't think Georgia lets you take Georgia Tech at any point, let's say. But I think where you could go is you could go to like a North Carolina and take really a number of schools. I think North Carolina or NC State would be the most likely. Probably NC State, because I think it'd be hard to separate Duke and North Carolina. And again, I don't think the SEC is going to want to double dip in the state of North Carolina. And the other place you go, I think, could be Virginia. You got the opportunity to take Virginia or Virginia Tech there. I think culturally, Virginia Tech is the best fit on the Eastern Seaboard. They love their football there. They're a good academic school, but they have a culture very similar to the SEC in a lot of ways in how much they love football and the atmosphere that they have on Saturday.
Well, let's go Hokies.
Yeah, so I think they're a potential one. And the other option, I think, is go west and see if you can somehow get a home run. And that home run would be Texas and or Oklahoma. Those two schools are obviously huge blue blood schools in the country, and if you could get them, that would be a home run for the SEC. I'm not sure they're leaving the Big 12, but that obviously is a league that has some uncertainty, and if you could somehow convince Texas and or Oklahoma that the SEC gives them stability, the chance to make more money, the chance to have a better shot at winning a national championship, that would be a coup for the SEC.
All right, again, Steve, I thank you, man, and Dick LeBeau, man, all the way Titans.
Yeah, that's what Titans fans are hoping for. So far, that defense hasn't looked that impressive in the preseason. But, again, it's just the preseason. It's been very vanilla up to this point. And I expect Dick LeBeau to get those guys going in time for the regular season. So much depth over there this year. And that's, I think, what you feel good about is if there's an injury or two perhaps maybe not in the secondary at cornerback, but on the D-line, at the linebacker position, I think you've got some guys that you can plug in there and not drop off a ton like maybe we've seen the past couple of years. Let's go to Mike. Mike, good evening. You're next up here on SportsLine.
Hey, Steve, man, I just want to tell you, man, I think you're doing a great job as the sports announcer for Channel 5. And my question, too, I have, do you think we could ever play the SEC championship in the Medium Stadium? And because I feel like we have such an awesome stadium there that could hold thousands of people. And my other question is, do you think we could ever play the Sugar Bowl there? I mean, I know Tennessee's been in the Sugar Bowl, but I mean, I just hate to see such an awesome stadium that we have to offer here in Tennessee while we have to go out to California to play. Why can't they come up here and play in our home turf? And I'll hang up and thanks for your time.
Yeah. I'll answer the first one. I don't think the SEC championship's ever going to move there. That's the game that you mentioned that maybe would have a shot because it's bid and it's a local thing throughout the SEC. But here's what you have is you have a bunch of schools that want to keep that game neutral, I'd imagine. It has always been a neutral site game forever since it's been implemented in the SEC. So I think it's going to stay in Atlanta. If we upgrade the stadium here, I think it could move here at some points. It potentially could see itself in New Orleans or St. Louis at some point if they want to rotate it. But I think that game is always going to be a neutral site game. The Sugar Bowl will always be in New Orleans. There's no debate about that. That is where the Sugar Bowl is. That is where the Sugar Bowl committee is. That is where it always will be. Now, could Knoxville and Neyland Stadium potentially put a bid in to try to host a bowl game? Maybe. But you're talking about a minor bowl, and chances are they wouldn't have an SEC team, and certainly not Tennessee, play in that game in their home stadium. But that's the one option if you were looking for putting in some kind of a postseason game there, to me. 737-7767 is the number. We got some lines opening up for you if you'd like to get in on the program tonight. But let's go to line 4 and Gordon. Gordon, good evening.
Hey, Steve. How you doing?
Doing great.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Titans, and I agree with a lot of what you said on the offensive side of the ball. O-line, much better. Running game, head and shoulders over where it's been the last 2 years. Passing game has been pretty good. Marcus really only went 9 for 16, so that's not a great night. My one concern with him is the long passes, because he's still underthrow. I mean, the really long passes. He still underthrows them. I don't know if that's arm strength or not trusting his receivers, but I'd like to see him get better at that. But I would say, all in all, I'm impressed with the offense. I think there's definitely a reason for concern with the defense, because we didn't just let our opponents score on the first drive in one game. It's happened in every game. And we only played Oakland. They're not necessarily going to be a top team. When we're playing Andrew Luck, and some of the other people on the schedule, it's a concern. Guys just seem to be out of position in the secondary. And I don't know if that's a discipline thing or a player thing, but it's getting pretty close to the real season, and I think that if it doesn't get cleaned up pretty soon, that could be our Achilles heel this year, even though we have a good offense. The third comment I have is, what is Antonio Andrews doing returning kickoffs? He's the slowest of all of our running backs. Dexter returns punts. He's fast. If he can return kickoffs, put him out there. If not, I said just don't put anybody out there and let's accept a touchback, because Antonio's got no speed at all. And frankly, I don't know if he's going to stay on the team, because we got the 3 Ds, Dexter, DeMarco, and Derek. I think they're going to be your 3 running backs. So those are my comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, Gordon, we appreciate the call. A couple things. I think there will still be a 4th running back, because I almost put Dexter McCluster in a different position. I think Dexter is somewhat a specialist on this team. He's going to get a few carries. He's probably going to catch a ball or two during the course of the night, and he's going to be your punt returner. I think they're going to try to get him 7 or 8 touches a Sunday and hope that he can break some stuff for you and give you some really big plays. That's his role. I don't think he will be the 3rd running back, though, quote unquote. So there will be another running back on this roster between Antonio Andrews, Bishop Sankey, and David Cobb. And right now, I think the nod goes to Andrews, and here's why. It's because of the little things he does. Of those 3 guys, he's the best pass blocker to have in there in a 3rd down and long situation to stick up and block for Mariota. He's also the best special teams player in all phases out of those three guys. I'm with you. I don't like him returning kickoffs because he's not a game breaker. And I think in the National Football League, if you're going to have a guy back there to return kickoffs, as few opportunities as you get in this league, he's got to be able to make something happen when he gets an opportunity. And I don't think Antonio Andrews can do that. But I think he's going to be on this team, and he's going to have a role in special teams. I just don't think it can be as the kick returner. And I hope Saturday night win ways in determining that for them. Defensively, you make good points. I think the word you used was concern. And to me, that's where you're at right now. It's a concern that this defense has allowed opening drive touchdowns in all three games in the preseason. It's a concern that the defensive backs that have been on the field have not always been able to lock down their guys, and they've given up some big plays. Those are concerns. But I don't think you necessarily have to hit the panic button right now. Parrish Cox is coming back. You're going to have Cox and McCourty on the field, most likely, as your 1 and 2 throughout the course of the season, which bumps everybody who's played down a notch. I think that immediately helps you in the secondary. Now, whether it makes all the difference, I don't know. But I think it helps you. And again, when it comes to this opening drive thing, it's the preseason. They haven't game planned at all until this past week, and even this week in Oakland, that was very vanilla, what Dick LeBeau threw out there against Derek Carr and company. And Derek Carr is an up-and-coming, young, good quarterback in this league. So until it starts to become a trend in regular season games with a game plan when it matters, I'm not going to panic yet on that either. But again, I think you hit the word. It's a concern. The Titans certainly would like to clean that up. Even Thursday night in Miami. Go out there, get the defense off the field with a stop, and give yourself some confidence moving into the regular season. And offensively, I think they've been good. Yeah, they could probably knock down a couple more of those home run balls deep. Mariota certainly can improve that. They've worked on that a lot in practice. He's connected on a fair amount of them in practice, so now it's just a matter of carrying it over to the games. But for the most part, I think you've seen a lot of people stand up. The wide receivers have made more plays this year than we've seen in the past. You have a couple different running backs who have proven that they can get the job done. And that offensive line, by and large, has looked very good so far in this preseason. Back to the phones and James. James, good evening. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I think Titans fans just settle down just a little bit. They talking about the defense. You know, we got a Hall of Famer, Dick LeBeau. We know him when he was with the Steelers. You know, they're in preseason, they never looked good. But when it come time for season, he would throw out the garbage with them. You know, I mean, he's a good coach, and I'm sure we're gonna have at least a top 10 defense this year. Because last year, you know, we was number one in a lot of areas last year. I think we finished 12th in defense.
13th, yeah.
13th, okay. Well, we finished 13th in defense, but for a long time we was top 5 defense to the middle of the season. I think the guys just lost gas. You seen the offense wasn't doing a lot of stuff, and they just kind of lost gas and interest. But I think if our offense last year would have been as good as the defense started out, I think we would have turned out great last year, but it didn't happen that way. But people don't need to get so uptight. I think we're going to have a dominant defense.
Yeah, injuries certainly hurt them last year too, James, with Derek Morgan going down. That linebacking core and the pressure on quarterbacks was never the same as to what it was early on in the year. That was a big impact to why they slid out of the top 10. I think this team has all the potential to be a top 10 defense and to really be dominant on Sundays some of the time. We haven't really seen that so far. So it's potential at this point. We've got to see them do it when it matters. The interesting thing about the preseason, though, is you can kind of make out of it whatever you want. You know, the offense has looked really good to this point, and so I think we all immediately want to jump on it and say, look at the offense and how much they've improved and how good they look. And this running game is leaps and bounds better than it's been. We still haven't seen it when it matters yet. I think all those things are true. I think this offense is better. I think this running game is more physical and will be better. But we don't get those real answers until September 11th against Minnesota, and we move into this regular season. 288 yards against the Chargers in week 1 of the preseason looked incredible. That was something to celebrate based off of what this team has done in past years running the football. But when we actually get into September and October, that won't mean anything if all of a sudden this team is running the ball 80 yards a game like we've seen in the past, or they're forced to throw it 40 times. It won't mean anything. And same thing on the defensive side of the ball. You look at some of the things they've done and some of the numbers, and you think, oh, man, is this the defense? What happened to Dick LeBeau? What's going on? What's wrong right now? But you know what? Until they actually get out there and they play for 4 quarters, I don't know if you can really make those judgments yet. So I think there's some encouraging signs from the Titans this preseason. There are a couple things that maybe give you some reason for concern. But the jury is still very much out when it comes to how good this Titans team can be. Remember, this is a team that has won a combined 5 games over the past 2 years. So much better, still has a long ways to go to be where fans and ultimately the Titans want to be. All right, we got to take a break. We will come back. More of your phone calls. Completely open bank of lines right now. So if you've had something, you've been waiting on it perhaps, now's your opportunity. 737-7767 to join the program. We also will likely hear from Titans GM John Robinson coming up on the program as well. Stay tuned. You're watching SportsLine here on News Channel 5+.